We're looking to open in a similar way to how we did last week with some rotation. So bring yourself down onto your back, choosing as to whether you'd like to begin with something slightly elevating the head. Does that feel more comfortable for you? Are you happy with the back of the head against the floor? And of course, there's some other factors to consider when you're choosing or not to have something there. And that comes down to the position of the ribs. Now, give yourselves an opportunity to settle, to drop into the floor, taking several deep breaths in through the nose. Notice as you do that what points of contact you have with the back of the body against the floor. And as you breathe out each time, can you fall back into them? Now, that doesn't require you to push back. It's just letting go. What's against the floor? And then dropping back. And just notice as you're coming through these few breath patterns, what points of contact you have back there so far as the shoulder blades and the rib cage area. Now it's the lower ribs. Would a head cushion help facilitate for you that as you took those breaths, that as you took your exhale, actually the front ribs dropped a little? And you can see here that with a little bit more elevation from my head, I'd be able to achieve a little bit more of that. Now we go back to comfort. How would it feel to have more than one cushion? How does the pelvis feel? And so there you make your choice. As we move into side to side, which is our opener, our rotation pattern through the lower half of the torso, you have several other choices. So arms could come wide, whether you naturally felt that palms up still enabled weight through the back of the rib cage, just palms down, help you with that. Make your choices there. Feet can be next to each other. So you have this reassurance from each leg to each other that there's going to be some support. Also some information helping you figure out where the ending is for your next rotation. We know that feet together creates a little bit more of a rotational focus through the lower back. But the wider the feet come, you could also be accessing a little bit more movement of the thigh bones within the hips. So a little bit more hip movement too, the wider you came. So choosing where you'd like to start there. And then when you're ready to, on your next breath out, you're going to roll the pelvis to one side. And it's that seesaw action of the pelvis, but more. As you breathe in, roll the pelvis back to the mat and the legs will follow. Now you can see here that with the feet together, one leg stacked on top of the other, there's going to be some additional load there. The big toes and the ankle bones stay in contact with each other the whole time. So you're bearing the soles of the feet, both of them, to one side. That's how you can sort of gauge as to whether you have the contact there. Now, it's always suggested that the movement is small to begin with. And personally, I can feel with the smallest amount of rotation that there's a little bit of reluctance here and there. And so my choice is not to force that reluctance and use the breath, stay calm and relaxed. And just allow for this more encouraging approach. Whereas you take your breath out each time, particularly with the weight of one leg on top of the other. There isn't a set destination in mind. how does it feel today? How does it feel in this moment of today? Use the breath. Drop back into yourself. You'll notice that as the pelvis rotates, whether your feet are wide or your feet are together, it seemingly exposes one half of your rib cage. So as your legs rotate to the left, for example, notice the right side of the rib cage. Could it be that in that rotation from that breath out, you're also aware of dropping back into yourself a little more? So as you breathe out, you're really looking for the front ribs to continue to fall back, even though, of course, they're moving away from the floor. If, like me, you did feel that reluctance through the body in places when you first started, just notice as we're winding up for these last few, how that feels now. And then the next time your legs are swaying towards your screen, you're going to use that as a transition to rotate yourself onto your side. And in doing so, you're going to begin to set yourself up for rotation through the upper half of the body. And so we head into book openings here. If your feet were previously touching, then you have some recollection of that. That's how they're going to be now. If you need a little bit more time to contemplate that, then consider viewing this shape from above, and you're only able to see the top half of you. There's no reason why you couldn't look down to see where the top half of the pelvis were. Does that feel like you are in fact stacked? And then once more, using the breath here. So as you breathe out, you're opening your top arm wide through the collarbone to bring you round to the back of the room here. Take your breath in and then breathing out to bring you back to your starting position. You're looking at the hand. There's awareness of the arm bone dropping closer to the socket of the shoulder. And bringing yourself back. So here, arm bone to shoulder. Watch that the shoulder blade doesn't move too much at that point. It will feel like it's dropping back towards the floor once you're in the full rotation. And then bringing yourself back. And once more, even with a fewer amount here of these patterns of movement, you might notice that there's a change. Pausing when you're back in your closed position. You may have done 5 or 6 there, depending on your pace. I would definitely did around 4 there. So that's what you're going to do on your second side. So again, once you're organised, then do have a look down there at the side of the torso. Opening the top arm, connecting and continuing round. And having brought yourself back there, bring yourself back onto your back. A quick recheck so far as how you're connecting with the floor. There isn't a requirement for any head cushions. But maybe you notice something about how you've landed with the back of the shoulder blades and the lower ribs. You're going to start to come into some bridging here, standing down into the feet. Hover the pelvis there and send the knees forwards. So the knees are moving over the toes. Breathing in up at the top, sighing, starting to separate the sit bones from their natural feeling of drawing a little closer to each other. As you land, completely land. So breathing out, feet pushing down, pelvis hovering, knees leading the length through the front of the leg. When you're up at the top here, and you might need to bring your feet a little closer in, depending on your experience, you're going to add in some heel raises. And so we have this understanding from some of the upright work that we do of a spread of the toes, so that as you lift the heels and lower them back down again, you really are trying to utilize all of the toes, especially big toe side of the foot. As your heels lift, notice how it feels like the fronts of the hips open a little bit more. Could they stay open as you lower the heels down? And of course, if 4 felt too many or not enough, you could do less or more. Same approach coming down. Really prizing the sit bones gently away from each other as soon as you start to move down back towards the floor. Using your breath down to come up. Lower leg bones vertical. They're reaching to that vertical place. Notice how the feet are feeling about this movement. Could the sacrum feel like it able to lift higher as the heels lower down? Might feel a little bit more intense back there. Feel free to break this up. We are using both feet currently. You could separate them as well, one heel at a time if you'd prefer. I'll take one more. Relax. Down to come up. And then softening at any point that you need to bring yourself all the way back down and let go. Interlacing your fingers here and taking them behind your head. We're going to start with a little bit of chest lift, but that's going to move into more of a crisscross patterning. So as you breathe out and you soften through the center of the chest, a little bit like you might do on your way down from your bridge. You're counting yourself up and then inhaling to lay yourself back down again. Breath out. Front ribs are dropping again. Use the floor as much as you can here. Inhale to unravel. When you curl up, next time you're going to change your mind, The low ribs are rotating to the side. Bring yourself back to center and then lay yourself down. Opposite direction. And then moving straight into the longer version of chest lift. So breathing out to curl up and reaching to hold. Using the arms to widen to bring yourself up that little bit higher. Hands are then going to come behind the head and you'll lay yourself back down again. Exhaling to curl up, reaching and holding. There's a pulling wide here before you reach the hands back to the head, inhaling as you lay down. But if you need more time, take it as you land. So you've got the full exhale for the initial movement. Inhale to reach and hold. Notice the height here. It's helpful to understand the different balance point between the initial chest lift and the height gained by using the arms. Using more segments of the spine, distributing the curved shape between them as evenly as you can sense. And then we'll pause there. You're going to stand down into one of your feet here. And take one of the legs up into the air like a dead bug. Hands are staying behind your head. Feels a little different, but could you square the pelvis off as much as you can sense? So you've still got the feeling of weight through the center. Thigh bone dropping deep. And I can sense here that this thigh bone doesn't really want to drop deep. So I'm going to think about being wide through the right sit bone, just so I get a little bit more depth. In doing so, the thigh bone then helps anchor the second leg that you're also lifting up into the air, and then you may need to take some time there to drop those both deeply. Again, sense the back ribs, lower spine changes shape with both legs up in the air in that bent position there. And as you breathe out next, you're going to be curling yourself up. You'll reach hands past the legs and then hold on. You could use the arms to bring yourself up that little bit higher once more, and you are coming all the way up. So as you breathe out, the legs go forwards into the hands, feet are dropping down, and you bring yourself all the way up into your seated position. Grab your bands when you're here. You could also use a little cushion behind you in the lower back. We're looking at rolling down and rolling up with the band and the cushion, if you'd like them both. So have a look at how your legs are organising themselves. The band does want to feel like it's pretty tight as a starting point, purely because that's going to give you a sense of support as you're rolling down on up. But of course, the tighter it is, the more it has the potential to bring your feet together, pigeon-toed, which means that the tops of your legs could also be rolling inwards towards each other too. That's going to make it quite difficult to find the curve through the lower back. So toes pointing upright, maybe for you as well, you have slight softness through the knees. But find your sit bones, whether that's a forward and backwards or whether it's a side to side, but find them both there. And then when you're ready, sending the feet into the band, a little like you would on assisted roll down, pushing the feet forwards and away to start to begin to tilt. Notice how the spine is falling backwards between the shoulder blades. Arms are holding themselves out in front. They may have even naturally rotated inwards through the upper arm bones until you're laying here back on your back. As you take your breath out, sigh through the center of the chest. You have that feeling of spine falling back. So there's a delay for the spine and more of a case of let's organize the limbs, the arms and the shoulder blades, and the spine will stay back and follow suit. So a little reach of the feet into the band doesn't feel so dramatic, but there is a sense there that you're getting some length through the backs of the legs. Maybe the little cushion is helping you out. Maybe you've chosen to use a ball and you're pausing much higher up in the curl. Using your breath out again, checking in with the toes. Are they still managing to point vertically up towards the ceiling to bring you up? And then we'll pause at the top there. The band is going to come to the side. You're going to bring your pelvis a tiny bit further forwards, and we're going to head into an assisted roll down and roll up, but keeping the feet off the floor. So effectively something that feels like a bit of a teaser too. So here you are. Maybe you take your cushion away. Your feet are pushing forwards and away from you, which brings about the tilt of the pelvis towards the rib cage. This brings you onto your back. And then on the way up here, the feet will drop down as they did in the transition, but you're going to stay on the back of the sit bones. So there's a slightly lower gaze here, which brings about a curve of the spine from the head to the tail, and then give the backs of the legs forwards and away from you into your cupped hands. You might feel that the hands start to slide. They do. Just to bring yourself back onto your back. And then forward you go into your sit balance, back of sit bones. Spine is still falling backwards between the shoulder blades. And so from here, you can continue with the assisted roll-up movement, keeping the feet off the floor, or you could move into teaser with the band. And so bringing the band back in, the exact same position you had it in previously, checking with the alignment of the feet, ankles, and the legs. And you're tilting your pelvis to come down. From here, you're lowering your gaze. You're noticing the back ribs and how they drop in towards the floor, and it's as if then that you're picking your legs up with the band, hence why it's tight. It's also moving wide so that you can keep some connection with band against the feet there. And then as you're breathing out to come down, can the spine fall between the shoulder blades? Backs of the legs are heavy, they're dropping down and falling away too, and then unraveling to bring you back down. Lower your gaze, reach the feet away from you, picking the legs up with the band, staying on the back of the pelvis. A little wider with the arms, but still that feeling of shoulder blades hugging the ribs. And then let the feet drop down and away. Let the spine drop too. Notice how the arms will just naturally come that little bit closer in towards you and resting down. You fall down next. You landing there. You'll take a roll up, which is often the more challenging part now, because you're going to want to keep your feet down on the floor. And of course, you've patterned something where they've been coming up in the air or staying off in the air. We're going to move into side kick now, but have your block ready, any cushions, because the side kick will bring us into Mermaid as well. So propping yourself up on your forearm. You are straight, so checking in with what that means. The heels are in line with the torso and the elbow. Your toes and your ankle bones are again stacking on top of each other in a similar way they did with your book openings. You're going to push down into your bottom leg, and it doesn't matter which side you've decided to start on. You may be propped up on your left forearm here, mirroring your screen, and you're going to kick the leg forward and swoop it back. Now, when it kicks forward, there's this awareness of where it is in space. If you notice it dropping, then there's potentially some rotating in of the thigh bone happening there. So purposely rotate the thigh bone outwards as it's coming forwards. And actually you can use the opposite tactic on the way back by rotating the thigh bone inwards at that point. I do a couple more of these. The inwards just sends that front pelvic bone forwards for you, creates a little bit of resistance, and then from there you're going to rest down. The leg you were kicking there will become the back leg of your Z-sit. Grab your blocks or cushions if you're hopping on board there, and then in your Z-sit position, you're going to give yourself some time to settle. And the settling in might just be stillness, but it also might involve a little bit of movement. So with the left knee in front here and the right foot behind you, what you're going to look to do is rotate towards the left knee, so moving on the diagonal. Pay attention here. And then drop back down again. So rotating, there isn't any force. Notice how this is. There's a calmness. Again, there's an encouraging of a little bit more rotation inwards of this thigh bone. Now notice how that feels for you. This would be for those of you who started side to side in a much wider stance because you were looking at accessing a little bit mobility in the hips. Pausing when you're back in the center. You're going to be lifting your right arm now and reaching upwards. Remember that the intention is always length. As you start to come into the bend, it's still length. Once more, we're looking to distribute the curve as best as we can feel through the entire spine. So the reaching up, the movement of the shoulder blade to take you up and over. Breathing in when you're here. And then breathing out to recover. How's this doing? Inhale. Breath in when you're here. And breath out to come back. One more. And then from here, off your blocks, if you've been on them, we're going to take ourselves over onto our second side for side kick. Again, looking at how you're organising yourself. Heels to elbow, looking down and up the body, just as you did in your book opening setup. And also sensing, where is it comfortable to rest on the outer part of this hip? If you're back, then of course it's going to be difficult to stack. Maybe you need to cushion there to help you find the spot right on the outside of the hip. Feet moving away from each other and then kicking and swooping. This was my thigh bone earlier that was choosing not to drop in. And I'm still aware of that as the leg's swinging forward, because of course that's the hip flexion action. There it goes. Flexing as it's moving forwards, pointing as it's heading back. Couple more. And then resting down. That, of course, could be a very swift transition if you're Z sitting with no block. Otherwise, bring yourself into your Z sit. Check in. How's that? And then just a little bit of extra time, either to settle and be still, or just attempt a little bit more give. And so by rotating to the diagonal, what you'll sense is some openness here. Now, you could say groin area might feel more hip flexor related, which is more this area on the side of the pubis. You may even feel something through the front of the leg. But either way, pay attention. You're not going to force any of that. Last one here. And then there you are, having landed, lifting the arm, keep your sense of up to bend, and then the exhale to return. You could keep the arm raised. In the bend, breathing into the ribs. And then returning from there. We're heading back into a seated position, and we're going to look at leg pull here. So bring yourself around into a long set, doesn't matter which direction you're facing in. You have your legs out in front of you. Maybe they're a little bit soft just to begin with. Now we're looking at a position of the hands whereby they're wider than the hips or further back. Sometimes we approach this by doing a big circle of the arms. and that could be included there. Or you might just want to lean back onto the arms and just get a sense of how this feels. And so, of course, there's a big bend through the front of the wrists. If you have the fingers pointing forward, no reason why you couldn't have a different approach and have the fingers pointing out to the side as well. But we're looking here at rolling through the heels. And to do that, you might need to have slightly softer knees just to begin with, so you can reach the heels to the floor. And then from here, if you continue to send the soles of the feet down and away, loading through the arms. As soon as you're coming down, you're widening through the seat gradually, not too dissimilar from bridging. But we're not quite the same in terms of the articulation of the spine. So don't worry too much about that. Think about sending the sacrum up. As the soles of the feet move away, create some space by the toes going away from you as opposed to your shins moving away from you. And then, of course, sitting yourself back down again. You'll notice how this feels. A way to come up. Lots going on. And then pausing when you've landed. If you'd like to, once more, you can bring a cushion blocks underneath the pelvis. We're going to have a look at some rotation from seated. For this one, the legs will be out in front of you. Go a little wider for more comfort. Maybe you want to sort of perch onto the front of your blocks or your cushions, so it helps you get again on top of the pelvis. Arms are going to go out to the side, so again, forward and backwards and side to side. Where are you in space? Looking to one hand, wide through the collarbone to take you into the rotation, and then unraveling to bring you back. Looking to the hand, bringing you round the corner there and back to center. I'll take two more. And last one. When you're back in the center there, pause. You can take any of your props and blocks away, and you're going to head over onto your front. You're going to start with the arms outreached, and so you're looking for a surface where you can slide the arms. And they're going to go out in front of you there. You're walking your legs away from your pelvis. And so you're feeling quite stretched. Take a breath in. Reach the crown of the head forward. Draw the arms in, widen through the collarbones. And as you breathe out, slide the arms back away from you. So taking your inhale to start to move, arms are straight, sternum is forward, shoulder blades are back, and then sliding the arms back out in front, inhaling. And breath in. From here, with a sense of reach away from you, with the arms and the legs, you're bringing yourself up into swimming. And you're going to start to paddle opposite arm and leg. Staying through the center as much as you can gauge that. Balanced strokes, Balance through the feet, balance through the arms, and then reaching away in opposite directions, going for the length of the body, feet and hands that you had when you started, and then from there, pushing yourself up and bringing yourself into your child's pose. I'm going to come round into cross-legged position and take a forward bend here instead. Maybe you have cushions on your lap. And so you can sense the impact of breathing in and the expansion in the back of the body. Start to unravel from there. Just bring yourself to focusing your gaze. How is that in your space? And then bringing yourself up to stand, however you'd like to. We're going to finish with a standing roll down. It could be there where you finish. Options to walk out into a plank position as well. And so, as you breathe out, lowering your gaze, softening through the chest. There's an up and over, and an intention to be a little bit more towards the balls of the feet as you're heading down. Could there also be more of an intention of the back body staying up as opposed to the fingertips touching down? As you breathe out, connect the big toes down into the floor and unravel to your upright position. Lowering the gaze, turning the ribs in. Arms will move away from your body as you're heading down there. Let the head go. Just notice if there is a shifting of weight from side to side. Just clock it. Could the hands stay off the floor? And more space be created through the middle spine area. And then of course you are going to bring your hands down. Walk yourself out into a plank as an option. Find that. And then send the legs away. Heels back and down as you walk back to your feet. Of course the hands will be on the floor to begin with. You can choose to have slightly bent legs as you recover, or they could be straight. But you've got that moment where you find yourself again. It's like you're wearing your arms for earrings in that upside down position. And then big toes pushing down for you to unravel and bring yourself all the way up. And there we are. Well done, everyone. Take care.